Recording in progress.
Good evening, members, councillors. Nigel Smith, we can start the meeting.
Thank you very much, Jane. Noswydda Croesio, good evening and welcome to today's Economy in Place Overview and Scrutiny Committee on Wednesday, the 28th of July at 5:30 p.m. My name is Councillor Nigel Smith and I am Chair of the Economy in Place Overview Scrutiny Committee. I can confirm that the committee officer has conducted a sound check before this evening's meeting, so I assume that everybody can hear me. And I welcome everybody to this evening's meeting where we are all attending remotely. In addition to committee members, we also have non-committee members, cabinet members and officers joining us to assist with our discussions this evening. For those viewing the live stream or recording, committee members are identified by an asterisk next to their name. The meeting will be recorded and live streamed and will be available for viewing after the meeting. Should the live stream fail, the meeting will continue to be recorded and will be available following its conclusion. Can I remind members that the translation service is available and to choose your language of choice. If you wish to speak, please use the raise hand function. You can also use the chat facility. All microphones will be muted. If you have indicated you intend to speak, you will be invited in turn to turn on your microphone. If you leave your device for any reason, could you please ensure that your microphone is muted and that your video stream is turned on?
Oh.
We will now move on to the first item on the agenda, which is apologies for absence.
Yes, councillors Samantha Cotton, Keith Eales, Pat Hebron, Abdul Khan and Ian Jenkins.
Thank you very much. Next item is the Declarations of Interest, Code of Local Government Conduct. I would like to remind members that they must declare the nature of their declarations of their declared personal interest. Do we have any? Councillor Geoffrey Corrie.
Thank you, Chair. So on the combined forward work programme, page 65, to consider a report in relation to the disposal of tier prints. I'd like to confirm my declaration of interest. If I could be sent a form to fill in, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jeff.
Thank you.
We will now move on to item 3, which is urgent matters. I'm not aware of any.
There are no urgent matters, Chair.
Thank you very much, Jane. So item 4 is to approve and sign as a correct record the minutes of the meeting of the 16th of June and the 17th of July 2021, which are on pages 4 to 20. I'm sure members have had time to read the minutes. Would anybody like to propose them? Councillor John Paul and Councillor Jeffrey, are you happy to second?
Yes, certainly.
Okay, if members are happy, could you please show by raising your hands? Yeah, I think those minutes have been confirmed. Thank you very much for that. We will now move on to item 5, which is to receive and note the minutes of the Local Area Forum North, 28th of June 2021, and these will be presented by Councillor Harry Saville, the Chair. Good evening, Harry.
Evening, Chairman. I think the minutes are self-explanatory. The only part I would draw members' attention to is item 6, the control of motorhomes parking within Llandudno, and members will note that I think there's a recognition that there's a county-wide problem with just them parking, but also the provision of facilities for them, and a report is expected to come through Democracy at some point. So that's just there as a brief information tidbit for members. Otherwise, I'm happy to propose that we note the minutes.
Thank you very much, Councillor Harry. Do we have a seconder for those minutes?
I'll second them.
Councillor Carroll, thank you very much. So we've got a proposer and seconder for those minutes. Could you please show if members are happy? Thank you very much. We will now move on to item 6, which is to review the forward work programme for Economy and Place Overview and Scrutiny Committee and the combined forward work programme, pages 24 to 73. Dawn?
Thank you, Chair. So for the purpose of the live stream recording, I'm Dawn Hughes, the Scrutiny and Committee Service Officer for Conway. Can I just highlight some changes to the forward plan since it was last published? The affordable housing viability assessment and the housing needs calculation were due to come to the next meeting on the 25th of August. However, they've been deferred as they need to go to the task and finish group in the first instance. So it's very likely that we'll need to organise a special meeting for any reports relating to the LDP. So I'll keep you informed of that. And following the request for a report, I think it was on the 19th of May, relating to the Council's procurement policy and how Conway could strengthen its local policy. Internal Audit are reviewing the procurement strategy and policy this year, and this should be complete by the end of March 2022. Therefore, a joint Finance and Resources and Economy and Place will be organised to consider the strategy prior to Cabinet approval. Obviously, officers will bring the strategy earlier if they can. Also, I've just had confirmation that the annual report from the allotment working group will come to the meeting on the 23rd of March 2022, and I have informed Councillor Ward because I know he has got an interest in that. And also the final version of the Conway Culture Strategy will come to the meeting on the 17th of November following public consultation. That's my update, members.
Well, thank you very much for that update, Dawn. Councillor Harry Saville, you have your hand raised.
Yes, Chairman, again, thank you for indulging me. Look, I've just got two asks as far as reports go. We usually have an annual homelessness report that comes to this committee, don't we, Dawn?
We do. It has been, let me just check. It does normally come, I think it came in January, February this year, maybe. I will check with officers when it's due to come, but yes, the annual report does normally come through.
Okay, my ask in respect of that report is, obviously since COVID, our responsibilities to house homeless individuals have changed significantly, and we're currently housing a number of individuals with complex needs. One unit that has been used to accommodate some of these individuals is within my ward, and I and some of my residents have some very real concerns about how it's being managed. So I'd be grateful if, when that homelessness report comes, if there could be a section in that actually talks about how housing projects for individuals with complex needs are managed. I'm happy to provide more details outside this meeting, if that's okay. My second ask is, would it be possible for us to have a report at some point looking at the feasibility of park and ride for Llandudno? Maybe. Doesn't have to be urgent, but at some point within the next year, that'd be great.
I mean, like, that's up to members to discuss, and like you say, that request, if members agree, that request can come to scrutiny, or we can ask Councillor Harry to complete a topic selection form.
No, I can complete a form if you prefer for that one. Okay.
Lovely.
Well, Chair.
Yes, Councillor Joan.
Can I think Councillor Harry's reading my mind. After this last few weeks, I've been definitely considering how we can have a park and ride into Conway. It's just, there's so many people and so little parking.
Yeah.
So can I ask Councillor Harry if he'd widen that from Llandudno to include Conway?
Sure, can do, Jan. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's a park and ride provision throughout the county, maybe what the topic should be, Harry. But thank you for bringing that forward. Very much appreciated. All right, members. So if we're happy with the forward work programme, just a show of hands, I think. So, yeah, that's everybody's happy there. Thank you very much for that. The next item is number 7, which is questions to cabinet members, and I don't think there are any.
There are no questions, Chair.
Thank you, Jane. So we'll now move on to item 8, which is to consider a report by the Strategic Director of Economy and Place on the following matter: the impact of unregulated holiday accommodation, and this will be presented by John Merrick, our Business and Tourism Manager, and it's on pages 74 to 80. Good evening, John.
Good evening, councillors. Good evening, Chair. Do you want me to just go through this? Yeah,
Yes,
okay.
please.
Apologies, first of all, that I haven't got a video. It's connectivity issues at my home. So starting on section 1 of the report, summary and key points, I think the 2 salient points here are that in recent years there's been a huge rise in the number of properties available as holiday accommodation, and the impact that those properties are having both with existing accommodation providers and the local community. And the second point is that Welsh Government are aware of this Wales-wide issue and are going to start to undertake consultation and work about bringing in new regulations that would require all accommodation providers to become registered. If I move to section 3, the report details, I mentioned about the huge rise in the number of properties, and just to put that into some context for Conway, I commissioned about 18 months ago some work to be done looking at one particular platform, which was Airbnb. Many other platforms exist, but we did some research as to the rise in holiday accommodation being advertised on that site. And back in July 2016, there were 135 properties in Conway being advertised for let or rent. Roll that on by 3 years to July 2019, and that had risen to 1,627. So a colossal rise in the supply of available holiday accommodation, short-term rental. And again, putting that into context,
John,
the demand has also risen. So this is a slightly different time scale, 19, so over 10 years. Hello?
Yeah, there are some connectivity issues. Are members able to hear John? Yep.
Yeah,
okay. Let me know if there's a problem.
Yeah.
Okay. Apologies. Total visitors have risen over that 10-year period, 2009 to 2019, by 1.17 million. And of those visitors, those that stay in non-serviced accommodation, which is typically what we're talking about with this unregulated holiday accommodation, over the same period has risen by 210,000. So we can see that the supply has dramatically risen, but the demand for that supply as well is rising equally. If I move on to 3.2, the impact of the unregulated holiday accommodation. Without doubt, there's a positive aspect to it. Digital platforms such as Airbnb, which are global platforms, do promote Conway as an area and show that we are a buoyant destination with a volume of accommodation which meets the varying demands of visitors. Visitor spend is higher for those that stay over. So without doubt, contribution to the economy of Conway is increased by people using this unregulated accommodation. But the negative aspect is twofold, really. One, there is concern that there isn't anybody checking the quality and safety of this accommodation. It creates an uneven playing field across accommodation providers, where as many as the many hotels and B&Bs would be following holiday criteria and having safety checks and their standards checked. So it is creating an uneven playing field. But probably the biggest impact is the impact on the local community. The unregulated nature of holiday accommodation does mean that visitors can sometimes be staying in areas that are traditionally residential. And this can lead to several issues that impact on local areas. It can increase the average house price in an area, making it difficult for local first-time buyers. The increase in short-term holiday lets also affects the availability of houses for sale. They get snapped up very quickly. Where we have large numbers of holiday homes, it may mean that fewer families in an area or a village use the services like schools, buses, post offices, and the viability of those services may be threatened by low usage. Businesses that provide typically services for local people, it is seen across the UK that these get replaced by businesses aimed at non-resident, the tourist population. So it can undermine the sustainability of a local community. And if there is a volume of holiday accommodation in an area, this can also have a negative effect on the Welsh language and culture of the area. Gwynedd Council last year produced a couple of reports, one on second homes, but one also on holiday homes. And key recommendation that they put in that report was to lobby Welsh Government to bring in a mandatory licensing scheme for all holiday accommodation, which would put a level playing fields across the accommodation sector, but it would also address health and safety concerns and give local authorities a better understanding of where and how short-term lets are operating in their areas. Earlier this month, the 6th of July, the Minister for Climate Change, Julie James, has announced plans for both second homes, but for also the unregulated holiday accommodation in Wales. And she has committed that work and a consultation on holiday accommodation registration scheme will start in the summer of 2021. So if I just move back up to the recommendations, section 2. So Welsh Government intend to consult on a mandatory licensing scheme for holiday accommodation during the summer of 2021. So we recommend that we should await the results of this consultation before taking any action ourselves, but actually in terms of us submitting evidence and our views to the consultation, to use the Economy and Place Overview and Scrutiny Committee as part of that consultation response from Conway Council. Also recommend that there is currently a tourism task and finish group that's looking at tourism tax. We would recommend that the remit of that group be extended to consider the local issues relating to unregulated holiday accommodation, rather than establishing a separate and new task and finish group. And finally, we would recommend that we would support and lobby Welsh Government for a mandatory licensing scheme for holiday homes to be introduced in Wales, and it certainly has the support of most of the trade. Certainly, trade bodies like the LHA are supportive of that. That's the overview, Chair. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, John. And there are a number of hands up. The first councillor is Councillor Michael Smith.
Thank you, Chair. My query was with regards to the jump and rapid increase in homes, and I was wondering whether that evidence through Airbnb was exact increase in properties, or whether it's just properties being listed on that website. Because I think Conway has always been a destination, and there may have been other means to list previously, like through Sykes Cottages, these holiday rental websites and businesses locally, rather than the up and coming go to Airbnb and Booking.com. So yeah, my query was, has it been a rapid increase in these types of properties, or is it just the accessibility of them properties on this one website, which we've used as a source of our data?
Evidence across the UK and Wales and our neighbouring local authority, Gwynedd, would indicate that there has been a rapid rise. The only evidence that we have is some commissioned work that we did around Airbnb, which shows that rapid rise. But you could be right that the people who are advertising properties on Airbnb now could have been advertising properties elsewhere. So you're correct on that. But the evidence across the UK, across Wales, and Gwynedd Council did a huge amount of research, does show clearly that there's a huge rise. One of the reasons is that for people that have properties at the moment, you get quite a good economic return on your investment. You get good rentals for short-term holidays, holiday lets, and you can get sort of tax incentives and business rate exemptions. So there are lots of advantages for people to be renting out properties at the moment.
Thank you. Cheers.
Cynhorydd Aaron Wynne.
Diolch, Cadeirydd.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, John, for your presentation. You mentioned the piece of work that Gwynedd Council published last year, and from that work, the recommendation to point to in our report today is about extending the remit of the task and finish group. If you're looking at the tourism tax at the moment, the discussion about second homes and holiday homes is very complex, and I would prefer a new task and finish group being established to look specifically at this issue. The impact of holiday homes is greater than just the hospitality sector. It's the impact on the greater community is much more intense. The report from Gwynedd Council offers far more than licensing plan. It's calling for change in the planning legislation, but I think that there is a need to differentiate. The tourism tax work is important, but it's very different to the holiday homes crisis. So I would like to propose that we establish a new task and finish group to look specifically at the holiday homes crisis.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Aaron. Councillor Bob Squire.
Thank you, Chair. Can I first of all say to John, thank you for the report, but he mentions in 323, and he commented on this to say that there were no staff, there's no one is required to check the quality and safety of the accommodation. Can I say first of all, Chair, that they can, and I'm sorry about this, but I've raised this in the last couple of Economy and Place meetings. environmental health officers have the power under the Health and Safety at Work Act, and they can inspect premises providing residential accommodation. So let's put that one to bed first, because there's no problem if they know that a property is providing residential accommodation. They can inspect. And I know that most council members, I'm not having a go at you, Chair, but most council members, and I think across Wales and maybe further afield, don't realise the duties they have under the Health and Safety at Work Act. Now, I established, as you know, that our environmental health officers have got over 3,000 properties to inspect. Can you imagine if they had to inspect these as well, which is what's going to come? There's no doubt about that. So health and safety, first of all, I might even do a presentation to council, because people don't realise how important it is, and they're neglecting their duties. Anyway, the second thing is, Chair, and I'm sorry I'm going to take a bit of time on this, but about 40 years ago, I tried to enlist our planning inspectors. So I'm not dropping anybody in it now, but at that time, we had a big problem with houses in multiple occupation. And they were growing exponentially, like these properties are. And I made a move to get planning to make sure they had planning permission. And when I retired 20 odd years ago, I went round the district of Colwyn Bay just to find out. And I just picked at random 10 properties, which were private little hotels or whatever, or just ordinary houses. And every one of them turned into a house in multiple occupation with no controls. And we're going through the same thing. I'm sorry, Chair, but I know I'm getting long in the tooth, but this is history repeating itself big style. So there is powers within the Health and Safety at Work Act and within planning to make sure that they register, etc. If the registration scheme comes in with Welsh Government, then they should also make it an offence not to register their property, because this is the only way you'll get to the bottom of this. We have got a big problem, a growing problem. I go back, Chair, a long time, as you know, and I can remember even when I was inspecting common lodging houses, and if you want the definition, I'll give it you. But we were doing them for poor people with accommodation by night. So all through my career, we've had housing legislation, and that seems to be disappearing, like health and safety, or it being ignored more than disappearing, where we had to impose housing standards on space, on size, on the number of occupants, etc. There's a whole host of legislation that could still be applied. So that's the first point I'm making, Chair, is I'm going to come back. But nevertheless, I want to tell John that the report is wrong in that sense. And a lot of the report, John, I know it's been done with every good intention, but a lot of it is pie in the sky. And this situation can be stopped because these people that have these properties are dictating the law and making fools of us. And it upsets me because I know when the legislation's there, we can apply it. So the Welsh Government is looking to introduce a mandatory licensing scheme for holiday homes. I will go with that entirely. And I'm going to come at the end of the report, Chair, if you'll permit me, to come in with something else. But I propose that we support that mandatory licensing scheme. Otherwise, we will not be going anywhere. We'll be going down the same road as we've gone with other things as a council, where we're not doing the job properly. I'm sorry, but that's how I feel. So,
thank you very much, Councillor Bob.
I'm going to come back, though, Chair. So I'll leave it at that for now.
Sure.
But I will come back.
I'm just wondering whether Councillor Chris Cater could perhaps take up the health and safety at work concerns with Peter Brow on your behalf.
They haven't got the staff, Chair. They can't do the 3,000 that they've got. this is what members are not realising.
All right. Thank
I'm
you very
sorry,
much.
I'm getting annoyed about this, but
I know. All right, so I'll just bring in Councillor Joan Vaughan. Councillor Joan?
Thank you, Chair. I certainly respect what Councillor Bob is saying, definitely. This report is fine, but it's only telling us what we know.
Yeah.
And it's called the impact of unregulated holiday accommodation.
yeah, yeah.
Conway is really impacted, and this situation I've been dealing with for the last 20 years. But in the last, I don't know, since Airbnb has arrived, every little room above a shop, every little square space has become holiday accommodation. You've only got to walk down the street, you can see all the lock boxes, the key boxes on doors. People are walking around the streets dragging those cases, those little cases everywhere. Conway already is very quiet in the winter. There's no lights in the street, but it's people who love and want to live in Conway. They can't compete with the prices that people are paying for this very, very profitable investment. And believe you me, that it is very profitable. The increase has also become more so because second homes have flipped. Second homes have realised, I let it out for 47 days a year. I don't pay council tax. I get rate relief. I pay for nothing. And they don't often even pay for their bin. Residents are squeezed out of parking places. Cleaners come in, block the roads because they're running here and there very quickly to clean the houses. They use anybody's bin. It's a huge problem. We must get regulation, but then you've got to look, it's all right saying, well, you've got to register and you did that. I don't know what that will do. It'll do nothing to my community and my town of Conway other than, provide a safe accommodation. But it's a bigger problem than that. It is, like Councillor Aaron says, the effect and the depression on the local community is huge.
If they suffer financially, Joan, it would help.
Oh, it would.
Yeah.
Make the licence cost thousands.
Absolutely.
I'm just wondering, Councillor Joan, whether part of the problem is it's been exacerbated by our LDP with the reluctance to increase or to further expand the number of holiday parks within the county. And the overspill has ended up being taken up by the local residents.
Yes,
maybe that's something that we need to look into as our LDP is being rewritten.
Well, as you can say, Chair, we're already making this a much bigger problem than this simple report.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Indeed. Thank you very much for your comments, Councillor Joe. Could I bring in the leader, Councillor Charlie McCoubry?
Joe Dara, thanks for letting me speak. These are really serious issues, and as Councillor Aaron said, Gwynedd did an excellent report, and that was subsequently followed up by Welsh Government commissioned a chap called Dr. Simon Brooks to look at policies to control all aspects of second homes, and I would encourage members to read it. If you Google it, it's there, but it came up with 12 recommendations, which are all about licensing, taxation, limiting numbers, planning, restrictions. So it recognises all the things that we're saying. Welsh Government have accepted those in principle, as Julie James has said they're going to trial it this summer. Well, as I look at the window, it's August in a couple of days. In any trial come forward as yet, which is frustrating. They're going to do it just in one area. Again, I find that incredibly frustrating because Northern Ireland has had licensing from holiday homes since year dot, since as far as I can remember. And they have successfully challenged Airbnbs. You can be an Airbnb, but you have to be licensed. and there is a licensing fee, and that licensing fee pays for the officers to go and inspect the properties. So it maintains the standard. There's not as much, they don't have control over the numbers, but again, Welsh Government recognise that that has to be a package, doesn't it, the whole thing. So I absolutely hear what Aaron's saying about a task and finishing group, but I think the job is just to get Welsh Government to actually do what they say they're going to do in terms of the policies that they're, because I think it really does look at the problem well. Airbnb is incredibly challenging. I had a complaint from a resident last night that their 12 students have rocked up to a 2-bed bungalow in Abergele, which on Airbnb is only supposed to have 6. But uniquely with Airbnb, I think the remote access, you just have a pinned key safe and in you go. There's no owner there making sure you are 6 people, not 12. That's been abused. Now, I sent an email. There's a complaints procedure in Airbnb where you can contact the resident and you can contact Airbnb. I did that at 2 o'clock yesterday. I still had no reply. So it really is unacceptable. But I would encourage members to look at that policy, the document, because it does recognise the problem. It does actually bring ways of dealing with it. It's just getting Welsh Government to actually get the finger out and push it through. And I've raised it many, many times, and I don't see why you need a trial, because Northern Ireland's done it for years and it's been successful. And I don't think anybody in Northern Ireland said it's a bad idea. So it just seems, very similar issues do we have here. Why not just copy what they've done somewhere else and don't try and reinvent the wheel? So thanks for letting me speak, Chair.
Oh, thank you, Leader. Very interesting points. Just while you were talking about Gwynedd there, I was sent a message to Dawn, and she's informed me that the Council Tax Premiums Task and Finish Group have considered the report from Gwynedd County Council and are looking into that. And I just wondered whether Conhorrig Aaron would be happy to refer his request for a Task and Finish Group, to refer his request to that Affordable Housing and Task and Council Tax Premiums Task and Finish Group instead. Would you be happy with that, Aaron?
I think as long as we read the report and see what connections we can make in Conwy as well. I think what Charlie said is absolutely right. We need the Welsh Government to act on this. But unfortunately, holiday homes isn't a national issue. It's a very local issue for Gwynedd, Anglesey and Conwy. So we have to lead the debate.
Yeah, I would agree. Okay, so if you're happy for that to go ahead as your proposal, we'll need a seconder. So I'm sure Councillor Joan will second that. Thank you very much, Joan. And just very quickly, if members are happy, could we please just have a quick show of hands before we move on?
You want to ask, and there is still a number of speakers, isn't there? So I don't know whether you want to bring them in first before we take a vote on that.
Yeah, I will do, Dawn. Thank you. Councillor Donald Milne.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I've had to take the video off. I seem to get problems this time of day. I think that this report, whilst very effective to create this debate we've got today, illustrates the problem that we really have, in that we don't have sufficient data to see all the problems, because there is no registration. We don't know how many of these properties there are. We don't know how many are converted from what used to be a massive B&B operation. We don't know how many are taking up smaller accommodation that you would expect families, first-time buyers, etc., to purchase within the county. It would be nice to know more details, and certainly by having some kind of registration here, that will be possible, and that would enable us to balance the supply across the county, because clearly, yes, this is the bread and butter of a large part of the county's operation. The other question really is, why are people preferring the accommodation like the Airbnb operation? Why do they prefer that over some of the hotels? Is it just purely because it's a cheaper option, given the fact that they're probably having to, rather than self-cater, in effect, they probably are making greater use of the takeaways and restaurants of the area? So, is it a money situation? Do we know that? And underpinning all this is what's already been briefly mentioned and inferred to, but I think we need to take further, is the fact that if you are offering this kind of accommodation, then you get small business relief. Can something be done, and this clearly would have to be at national level, but can something be done to actually remove that benefit? Because clearly it's giving in some ways unfair competition to the smaller hotels and operations across the county. These are the things we need to be looking at, and clearly we do need more information. Thank you, Chair.
I would agree. Thank you very much, Don. Councillor Harry Saville.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Am I right in thinking that Aaron's proposal is that we refer all of this into the Affordable Housing Council Tax Premium TNF?
Yes.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm going to differ then. I'm going to propose that we just go for recommendations in the report. I think there's good reason for this. Members may not remember, but when the tourism tax TNF group met, the biggest issue that faced the TNF group in the first instance was having a tourism tax in principle is all fine and well, but you need to know who to levy it on. And if you have a load of accommodation providers that we don't know about, you can't tax them. So it makes having a tourism tax completely pointless. What's the point in having a tax if you don't know who to tax? So I think there'd be certainly some crossover there. Because basically, for tourism tax, whatever form that might take, couldn't be implemented practically until this bit of work were carried out. Personally, I'd have concerns about creating yet another task and finish group. We seem to have an awful lot of them, and I'm reminded of Ronnie's comments, task and never finish group. So I'd just like to propose the recommendations in the report that we refer all of this into the tourism tax TNF.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Harry. Councillor, Conhorig Aaron, do you have any comments there?
Yeah, just to say, I don't disagree with what Harry said, but you know, the impact of holiday homes is much greater than just on the hospitality sector. The impact on our community is much greater. So having possibly either a separate task and finish group to look at the whole thing holistically, you know, it's not just the impact it has on the hospitality sector. It's much more than that.
Can I come back on that very quickly, Chair? Just with an observation on what Aaron said. And this is the one thing that worries me about a tourism tax. It isn't really a tourism tax, is it? It's a hotel or hospitality tax. Now, in this council, we regularly talk about the burden that tourists bring. Personally, I think it's massively overstated. I'm grateful that people want to come to our part of the world. But what I'm mindful for in Llandudno, 2/3 of the tourists don't stay in the hospitality sector. They get in the car, they drive in, they go home at the end of the day. And when we talk about people littering, leaving rubbish near bins, it's probably more likely to be these day trippers than the people in the hospitality sector. So that's why I think it's worth taking this into the tourism tax TNF. I wouldn't want to see that tourism tax TNF becoming a let's bash the hotels TNF. It's got to, if we're going to have a tourism tax, look at tourism in the wider picture. I mean, I think near me, I've got a one-stop. It's near West Shore. Lots of tourists visit it in the summer. That wouldn't be picked up by a tourism TNF, but yet it's certainly part of the tourist economy. So I think that's a broader discussion point for the tourism tax TNF, and I think this would fit very well with that.
Okay. Points accepted. Councillor Bob Squire, you wanted to come back?
I did, Chair, and I might want to, sorry. Yeah, I did, Chair, and I might want to come back even again. But I agree with Councillor Saville in the sense that the Llandudno Hospitality Association wanted the establishment task and finish group. There is a big difference because to me, there's no need. If mandatory licensing applies and health and safety applies to these properties that we're talking about, it will not impact on the hotel industry. The impact is on the community as well. That, as Aaron pointed out, and this is a big issue, and I've always supported Aaron on that issue. But the problem with this council, I think, is we're always promoting waffle. instead of enforcing existing legislation. I'm sorry to keep on about that, but we do. And too many people in local government and Welsh government who have no idea what legislation applies already, and a lot of it can be applied to these sort of issues. So to me, we don't need to wait for the various recommendations, and I want to make a proposal of my own, and I hope somebody will be brave enough to support me. And I don't know if Dawn's ready on this, but I would recommend that this council, a resolution of this council, urges Welsh Government to introduce, as a matter of urgency, a mandatory registration or licensing scheme in respect of all domestic properties used in Wales for holiday accommodation, such as Airbnbs, holiday homes, etc. That's my resolution, but I would strongly remind local authorities in Wales and in Welsh Government of their substantial duties to enforce the requirements of health and safety in all its applications, which would deal with premises being supplied for residential accommodation. Why people can't see that, I don't know. But that's my resolution, Chair.
I'm quite happy to support that, Chair.
Yeah.
Thank you,
very
John.
reasonable, Bob, and you've got a seconder, Councillor John.
Thanks, John.
Okay, the leader, Councillor Charlie McCoubrey.
Thanks, Charles. Thanks for letting me back in. I forwarded that document to all members. I think Aaron's put a link. I urge you to read that because it does cover all the stuff that you're worried about. The Welsh Government have accepted it. I have stressed it at every meeting I've been about this, that it needs to move faster, that it's a real problem. And as Aaron said, it's a much bigger problem in Gwynedd, much bigger problem in Ysmond than it is for us. But in certain areas of the county, it's really acute. So it needs looking at. And I think it's a really fair and balanced report. So before we go form the task and finishing group to again, it's reinventing the wheel. The research has been done.
Yeah.
Recommendations are there. And I genuinely thought if you read it, I don't think anybody will disagree because it's really fair and balanced and there's sensible proposals. It's just getting through the Welsh Government that it needs to happen sooner rather than later. That's my real frustration. But I will continue to bring it up because, as I say, that in my own ward yesterday, that complaint, the residents, there's 12 people in there. What about fire safety, health and safety? It's ridiculous. But enforcement needs to be paid for, Bob, so there needs to be registration. These people are making big money. You can't rent out a house privately without being a member of Red Smart Wales. You've got to do landlords exams, you've got to do all that stuff. And yet this holiday home business is completely unregulated and it's farcical. But just please read it, because honestly, I think if you form a task and finish group, you'd read that and go, well, there you go, that's what we, it's kind of done. That's all I'm saying. It's just putting pressure on the right places. I think writing a letter, as Bob said, and we absolutely are 100% behind this, is a useful thing, because that's what I'm saying. So to have the support of all our members saying, yeah, we agree, this is what we need to do, would be really useful. So thanks, Chair. Sorry, I'm rambling on a bit. Apologies.
Thanks, Leah. Thank you.
We welcome your comments. We really do. So I think where we're up to at the moment, members, is we've got I don't know whether we've got a proposal now, because I think the leaders pretty much rounded it up that this work has already been done for a task and finish group. So I don't know whether that includes everything that's actually in 2.2, which was the original recommendation, to widen the tourism tax. Is that what you were meaning there, leader?
I think tourism tax is a completely different thing, isn't it? Tourism tax, right, the cost of bins, the cost of all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And we charge for parking, which is a bit of a tourism tax because it's tourism. So but I think that's a separate thing. They should be licensed. There should be some control. There should be all these things. We need to be mindful of the damage it causes. It should be balanced. And I think this paper does do that. But I'm not quite sure where this leaves a chair in terms of your proposal. But I don't think we need any more task and finishing groups. I think it's up to me to lobby hard with Welsh Government to actually do what they said they were going to do. Because I think the problem has been identified. Solutions are there, which I hope if you read it, you'll agree with me. It's just, can you get your finger out and actually push this forward? And if there's going to be a trial, make the trial Conway. I'll push for that all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I agree with the leader entirely on that, but I would still like my resolution considered, Chair.
Thank you.
I know you want to get rid of it, but no.
No, not at all. Not at all. Councillor Joan, you were...
Yeah. I have read the Gwynedd paper because I'm on the task and finish group of the second homes.
Sorry, John, it's not the Gwynedd one, it's a different one.
It's a different.
Yeah, it's one the Welsh Government did on the back of the Gwynedd one.
Okay. Well, I'll read it.
It's really good. It's well worth the read, and it's got 12 proposals which cover all these different elements.
Okay, so can we incorporate? It sounds as though it's saying everything we're saying.
Yeah.
So I'm not a favour of more task and finish groups either. So can we sort of go with the recommendation, but maybe broaden the remit of it somehow? Because tourism tax is another thing. Or do we need to leave the tourism tax and have our own? I'm unsure. Can somebody help me?
Cynhorwyd Aaron, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not too sure now either. I mean, the reason I made the original recommendation was because the impact second homes and holiday homes has, like I said, is greater than just on the hospitality sector. And the way I was reading the original report was it was going to a tourism task and finish group, and I was just concerned that it might be looking at that issue alone. If it can look at the whole picture, then I think that would be all right. If we can just extend it a little bit, there might not be a need to create a new task and finish group. But I think we just need to be mindful that, yes, it does have an impact on the hotels, and we need to support our local hotels, but it does have an impact on our communities as well.
Yeah.
So I think pretty much what we're saying here is we'll accept the recommendations, which include the 2.2 of widening the remit of the tourism tax and finish group. But also, we ought to support Councillor Bob's recommendation or letter to Welsh Government that there is a register of all houses used for holiday accommodation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that we urge Welsh Government to bring forward their second homes new policy, if I'm correct.
Yeah. Would you like me to read it out again,
Not
Chair?
second homes. Go ahead, Bob.
Would you give me permission, Chair, to read it out again?
Yes.
This council urges Welsh Government to introduce, as a matter of urgency, a mandatory registration / licensing scheme in respect of all domestic properties used in Wales for holiday accommodation as Airbnbs, holiday homes, etc.
Thank you, Councillor Bob.
That is quite right. That is what I seconded, Mr. Chairman.
Right. Thank you, John.
And I think they're two different issues.
Yeah.
The task and finish can look at it, and Bob's resolution can go forward separately.
Yeah. Right. So I've got a couple of hands up. Chris Hughes first. Councillor Chris. Can you unmute yourself, Chris?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think the leader actually said a lot of what I was planning to say in terms of the proposals coming out of Welsh Government, which, in my view, do seem to cover many of the aspects that Councillor Bob is looking at in terms of the how accommodation is regulated. And I think their view is that will also provide not just a register of accommodation, but many of the, as we've said, many of these units of accommodation, nobody knows where they are. So it will give us that as well, so that we can better understand our demography. And we've often said in Conway that we have that, during the summer, our population can almost double because of the numbers of the different accommodation that we have. But it is often a guess that that's what happens. And I certainly think this would be helpful. I just wonder whether I agree with Bob's recommendation, but I just wonder whether it's relevant because that work already seems to be underway.
No way. No.
Not, I say that, Bob, from a perspective that the document that the Welsh Government is actually actively working on a scheme of registration for this type, for all types of holiday accommodation.
I know that, Chris, but for how long will it go on where we're talking a lot of waffle instead of getting the job done?
Yeah.
Sorry, Chris, but I feel strongly on this.
Okay. Well, I'm going to move it to the vote, members. I'm going to take Councillor Bob Squire's proposal, which was seconded by Councillor John Roberts, that we send a letter to Welsh Government. I presume this will be coming from the leader. Will it? Yes?
Yes.
So we'll take that vote first. Dawn, do we need a roll call?
Yes, we'll need a roll call because this will go to Cabinet, this recommendation from Scrutiny. So for Cabinet to endorse it.
Okay, can you proceed, please?
Yep, okay, thank you, members. If you can indicate if you're for, against or abstaining. Councillor Carol Beard.
For.
Councillor Philip Capper.
For.
Councillor Jeff Corrie.
For.
Councillor Chris Hughes.
Clyde.
Councillor David Johnson.
For.
Councillor Gail Jones.
For.
Councillor Don Milne.
For.
Councillor John Roberts.
Obliged.
Councillor Harry Saville.
For.
Councillor Michael Smith.
For.
Councillor Nigel Smith.
Obliged.
Councillor Bob Squire.
Obliged.
Councillor Jen Vaughan.
For.
And Councillor Aaron Wynne.
Obliged.
Thank you, members. That was unanimous.
Yeah, that's been approved, and I want to thank Councillor Bob and Councillor John Roberts, Bob, for bringing that to our attention, and good work again. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to the recommendation, if we can, which is on page 75, 2.1 and 2.2. Is it the same again? A roll call?
Sorry to interrupt. Have we had so can I just be clear? Councillor Aaron has withdrawn his original proposal for a task and finish group.
Yes.
Okay.
I proposed it some time ago, Chair.
You proposed it, Councillor Harry. Did we have a seconder?
Yeah, I
Councillor
second.
Joan. Okay. Thank you, members. Sorry, Nigel. You can continue. I'm a bit clearer now.
So a roll call now, is it, Jane?
Yeah, so we're having a roll call for the recommendation 2.1
and 2.2
and 2.2 and
2.3 actually as well.
2.3.
Yeah.
So we'll take them all together if members are happy to do that. Okay, so if you can indicate clearly if you're for, against or abstaining. Councillor Carol Beard.
For.
Councillor Philip Capper.
For.
Councillor Jeff Corrie.
For.
Councillor Chris Hughes.
Obliged.
Councillor David Johnson.
For.
Councillor Gail Jones.
For.
Councillor Don Milne.
For.
Councillor John Roberts.
Obliged.
Councillor Harry Saville.
For.
Councillor Michael Smith.
For.
Councillor Nigel Smith.
Obliged.
Councillor Bob Squire.
I'll abstain on this, Chair, because I feel that we should be taking action far before that happens.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bob. Councillor Joan Vaughan.
For.
And Councillor Aaron Wynne.
Obliged.
That's 13 in favour and 1 abstention.
Thank you very much, and thank you to John for bringing the report to us this evening. So that has been approved. We will now move on to item 9, which is We'll now move on to item 9, which is to consider a report by the Head of Economy and Culture on the following matter. 9.1, which is the Welsh Public Library Standard Annual Return for 2019-2020 and Welsh Government Assessment. And this is to be presented by Anne Lloyd-Williams, Section Head of Culture for Information, and Sharon Morgan, Librarian and Information Manager. It's on pages 81 to 123. Good evening, Anne, and good evening, Sharon.
Good evening, members. We'll do a joint presentation, as the Chair has just mentioned. So I'll start, give the overview, and then Sharon will come in with the detail, and then I'll come back in later. This is our annual appearance before scrutiny. As members know, libraries are a statutory service, and local authorities got a duty, a statutory duty, to provide a comprehensive and efficient library service for all persons under the Public Libraries and Museum Act 1964. In Wales, the way that this duty is measured and monitored is through the Welsh Public Library Standards, and there are a series of frameworks which measure a number of different things. There are indicators which have there are financial indicators, there are numerical indicators, but also there is information provided on the direct and indirect effect of the library service on its users, and how libraries make a difference to people's lives and contribute to a series of big agendas such as literacy, digital inclusion, cohesive communities, poverty, and health and well-being agendas. So each year we provide a return to Welsh Government, provide a self-assessment. That self-assessment is then looked at by a peer-led group of Welsh Government officers, heads of library service, and external experts, and then all the assessments are published on the Welsh Government website. So this is our return for 2019-20. The report is later coming to you than usual because of COVID, and our return is attached as Appendix 1 if members wish to peruse it. So we've had a letter which has been sent with the annual assessment to the Chief Executive that arrived in February, which said that Conway met 12 of the 12 core entitlements in full. Of the 9 quality indicators with targets, we achieved 7 in full, 1 in part, and didn't achieve 1. And Welsh Government noted that we continue to perform well throughout the current framework, and our commitment to health and wellbeing is very evident along with all the external partnerships that we've got in place. They noted a slight decline in service use, probably because COVID-19 hit towards the end of the year, 1920, and also they noted the reduction in staffing and the impact of the reduction in staff. They also talked about the work that we're going to be engaging on as community hubs, and hope that this will provide us with resilience. So overall, the service has done well to maintain performance levels over 3 years despite some reduction in budgets, and they're very grateful to officers for submitting this year's return. So I'll ask Sharon now just to go through the detail of the report, and then I shall come back later. Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you. I'll just share my screen. So just scroll down to 3.7. So the core entitlements, where obviously, as Anne mentioned, that we've met the 12 of 12 in full. If you do read that on the in the appendices, it does detail the wide range of services that are available to the people of Conway in their public library, the breadth of the services and the meeting the needs of the community, and it's an excellent advocacy tool. Then in 3.8, we're talking about the quality indicators. These are the ones with targets, and there are 16 of these usually, but they were reduced slightly to give us a little bit of grace due to COVID and the amount of data calculation that some of them involved. Those were relating to user training, the attendance at events, and the cost per visit. So of the ones that remain, we met 7 in full, 1 in part, and 1 we did not achieve. So we did not achieve the quality indicator relating to up-to-date and appropriate reading material. Obviously, the capital funding that we did receive supported our revenue budget, but we were quite short of meeting that target, having spent £196,000 on material. The other one that we did part meet was relating to the staffing levels and the qualifications. So at the end of the financial year, we should have had 42 full-time equivalent staff, but due to the budget cuts, the staffing numbers had reduced from that level in 2016-17 to 33.3 at the end of the financial year, and our current position at the end of the most recent financial year is actually 30.5. This is really having an impact now on our service delivery, and some of you will be aware that over the last few weeks we have unfortunately had to close at short notice some library sessions due to lack of staffing, and clearly with the impact of COVID as well, and staff needing to isolate at times, it's pushed us beyond the staffing level to keep all our service points open. We do meet the number of staff holding the my role being the formal qualification in librarianship, but we don't overall have the professional staffing levels required either now, due to the staffing changes and the budget cuts that we have faced. In 3.9, then we've got the quality indicators and benchmarks. So this is where they will compare services across the whole of Wales. We also undertook a user survey, which we detail here. And obviously, if you were to look in the engagement and consultation part in section 5, it does tell us about the impact that the libraries are making on the lives of people in Conwy. 87% of adults actually in the last survey felt that the library was making a difference to their lives. 90% of children felt that it helped them learn and find things out. 82% of adults thought that using the library had helped them to develop new skills, and 97% of adults considered the library to be an enjoyable, safe and inclusive place. So, you know, overall that is a very high satisfaction level, which we are very proud of to have had from our customers. We, excluding the financial indicators, going back to 3.9, our performance is above or equal to the Welsh median on our virtual visit, where we're 4th. Our active borrowers, the issues of resources in the Welsh language, the number of computers actually available, the percentage of the time used, the percentage of unplanned closure and missed mobile stops, which were very low. So other than the visits to libraries where we were below the median, we've performed very well despite the major challenges which we've already detailed. We believe that the visits to libraries, as I mentioned, was particularly challenged due to the change in the public's perception about attending our places, our libraries due to COVID. Obviously from February, really, some people didn't feel confident to attend public places, and then we faced the lockdown in the week and a half before the end of the financial year, which is also included. The operational expenditure was above the Welsh median as well, which is detailed in the report. The capital spend was also above the Welsh median, and obviously this was due to the expenditure during the financial year on the Culture Centre at Conwy. So obviously that was an exceptional year. And then in 3.10, we detail the case studies that we have had. We've always very proud of our case studies and what it tells us about the impact of the service on people's lives. The first one that we talk of is the youth obligation programme and the work at Colwyn Bay Library over an extended period. And the result of the programme was that 3 young people got jobs, 3 were offered a work placement, and another got voluntary work. The work with the Welsh Learners Group, we've been working with Menter Iaith before. Conwy Library moved to the new Culture Centre on giving people the opportunity to practice their Welsh language skills. And that group actually did continue during lockdown as well through Zoom. And it did give a practical and informal setting really for learning Welsh. Our staff development, again, despite some of the challenges that we faced, is something that is high on our agenda, and 2 members of staff in service have completed the cultural heritage through Llandrillo College, who have really supported us very well, and they detailed the knowledge that they acquired. They were some of the first people in the UK to complete this qualification, and it's put them in good stead for working in the centre. And then the chatting corners, dealing with and discussing death is something that has maybe been not as well practiced as maybe it needs to be within society. And working with a local funeral director at Colwyn Bay, we've had something similar to what's currently described as a death cafe, where people feel that they can discuss matters relating to death and dying, again in an informal setting, but it does give them the opportunity to discuss maybe outside their own family group, people who have also experienced death recently. And there were actually 15 people meeting quite regularly at Colwyn Bay regarding this. The project was called Chatting Corners, obviously until COVID changed our what we were able to do within our buildings. So we were quite pleased really that despite it being a difficult subject, that people felt that they could come to the library and be supported within their locality. So thank you for listening to the detail there. I'll transfer back to Anne now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sharon. Thank you very much. So just to sort of go through the engagement that we've actually carried out as part of the strategy. Every 3 years we do a survey of adults and users. So members will have heard this information before, because the last one was carried out in November 2018. We had a significant amount of returns. What is really interesting is the high percentage of satisfaction, and what's coming through very strongly is that a large number of adults and children think the library makes a difference in their lives and helps them learn things and helps them develop new skills. One of the things we are currently working on as members are aware is we are looking at a new library and information strategy. The public consultation on that has just ended and the results are being collated, and that will form the programme of work for the service over the next 5 years. A report will be coming through the committee process in October. So our cabinet member wanted to say how adaptable and innovative the staff have been, and really wanted to flag up the excellent customer service that we provide for our customers, but also drawing attention to the staffing levels, which Sharon has just mentioned. So if we just flag up again on the resource implications, Sharon's already mentioned the number of staff reductions. We have reduced our staffing quite significantly. Professional staff reduced by 31%, and the number of frontline staff by 15% since the beginning of this framework. As Sharon has mentioned, that has had an impact on delivery. Over this framework, we've actually had savings of over £336,400, which has mainly been staffing. On the very positive side, we have been very successful with our business cases for capital business cases for the purchase of books and materials, and that has made a significant difference, I think, again, to the amount of materials we've been able to provide, especially during COVID, when books have been seen as a lifeline for a lot of people. And we also had funding to replace our public access computers as well. I'm not going to go through all the work that we do in terms of the corporate plan and also all the other priority areas, but I just want to flag up now that we as I mentioned, will be coming back with the new library and information strategy, but also the culture strategy is currently out for consultation, and libraries are a huge part of that strategy going forward, and there will be lots of new opportunities to flag up our library services. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Anne. And it's an amazing report, Anne, and you should be congratulated on what you've done for this service. There was 9 performance indicators or quality indicators, and the ones that you've sadly missed out on are purely down to the financial constraints that we find ourselves under at this time. You're doing a wonderful job. I don't have any members showing any hands for questions as yet, but I want to ask you about digital books. I see there was quite a marked increase in the use of digital books, and is this a growing trend?
I'll ask Sharon to respond on that one, because it's really interesting actually, because it has been, for most people, there was a huge move towards digital books a few years ago, and then people went back to the physical book. But I think because of COVID, Sharon, I'll pass on to you now. It's changed again. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, I think it's come to its own during last year, where people could get their online membership. If they weren't already a member of the library, they could join digitally, and then they could get access. We clearly invested far more in our digital collection during the time, and also had some Welsh Government support as well across Wales for our digital collections, which we really appreciated. And obviously they're for children, they're for fiction, and they're for non-fiction and self-help books, for example. So yeah, we had a 69% increase year on year between 1920 and 2021 on our digital on our digital loans. So we are very fortunate to have been able to offer that during the times where we were actually not permitted to open to the public, and then clearly people were allowed to collect books from the library foyers, but obviously when people were able to choose their books digitally, the range of stock that was available to them was greatly extended. So I think for many people during that time, they did turn to digital books. Will they in the long term? Some will be maybe converted to it for some reasons or for some scenarios during their life, but not for everything. Whilst others are obviously keen as well to hold the physical book in their hand because they like that, and obviously going to bed on a blue screen may not be too good for you. So having a book and having a digital screen, they both got their place and their merits.
They have indeed. Councillor Joan Vaughan.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Anne and Sharon, for the report. As usually, Conway's high standards have been maintained. We have, if I get any really good compliments being a local councillor, it's about the library service. Oh, how they missed you when you were closed. Oh, how can I get a book, Joan? How can I get onto the site? How can I do this? It really did show how much you were missed, how you are valued in the community, and how much Conway loves the new culture centre and everything you've got to offer. So well done, very well done.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I would agree. Thank you, Councillor Joan. Well, we don't have any other people signalling that they wish to comment. So again, Anne and Sharon, congratulations on an excellent report. I'll take the members to the recommendation, which is on page 82, and that the members fully consider the feedback given by Welsh Government Assessment and approve the annual returns 2019 to 2020. And I think this is just by a show of hands, possibly. Oh no, Jane, are you calling a roll call?
Yeah, have we had a proposer and a seconder?
I'll propose that.
Councillor Jeff is to propose and Councillor Joan to second.
Okay, and the report is going on to Cabinet, so if I could do a roll call.
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you, members. So clearly state if you're for, against or abstaining. Councillor Carol Beard.
For.
Councillor Philip Capper. Are you there, Councillor Capper?
Sorry, I was muted. 4.
That's okay. Councillor Jeff Corrie.
4.
Councillor Chris Hughes.
Obliged.
Councillor David Johnson.
4.
Councillor Gail Jones.
4.
Councillor Don Milne.
4.
Councillor Harry Saville. Councillor Saville must have left the meeting. Councillor Michael Smith.
4.
Councillor Nigel Smith.
Obliged.
Councillor Bob Squire.
Obliged.
Councillor Joan Vaughan.
4.
And Kinghorridd Aaron Wynne. Oh, are you there, Councillor Aaron? He's
I think he may have left.
may have left. Okay.
Oh no,
That's-
he's there, is he? Oh no, he's frozen.
Oh,
Sorry.
he's frozen.
Yes.
Okay. Councillor Aaron? No. Okay, not to worry. That's everybody in favour, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That has been approved by the members. And again, Anne and Sharon, thank you very much. And take care and carry on the good work on our behalf. It's very much
Thank you all.
appreciated.
Thank you very much. Diolch.
Thank you, members. We will now move on to item 10, which is to consider a report of the Head of Regulatory and Housing Services on the following matter. 10.1, the relocation of Afghan nationals to the United Kingdom, to be presented by Debbie Lamb, Section Head of Supporting People Lead Officer, and Ashley Stevens, Conway Housing Solutions Partnership Manager. And it's on pages 124 to 131. Good evening.
Evening, Chair. Thank you for having us. So hopefully you've all had sight of the report that's been prepared by Housing Strategy. So I'll just run through briefly really an overview and some of the issues around it. So in short, the UK government is seeking support from local authorities to provide accommodation for locally engaged staff who worked for the UK government in Afghanistan and also families who are seeking to move to the UK with them. So as you may be aware, the political situation in Afghanistan has become increasingly volatile. America and ourselves have withdrawn from the country, and that means that our formerly locally engaged staff are increasingly vulnerable to attacks and threats to their lives. So the UK government has therefore taken the decision to accelerate plans so that as many of those locally engaged staff can be evacuated over the summer rather than over the previously planned 2-year period. So we've been in initial meetings with the WLGA and initial indications that up to 3,000 people will take up the offer to relocate to the UK. However, obviously sourcing the accommodation is a little bit tricky. So in terms of how the scheme will work, local authorities have to volunteer to host an agreed number of families in return for funding, and that funding is designed to cover costs that are incurred. So it's largely around providing accommodation and also intensive support to integrate the families into the community, in the aim that within the 12-month transition period that family and household will be integrated in the community, sought employment, and able to live as independently as possible and be part of the community. So funding has been made available from the Home Office for 12 months for each individual beneficiary that comes. So within the report, it's page 3 on my report, there is a breakdown of what financial assistance is available from the Home Office, which covers the accommodation costs, integration support, and also weekly cash support that we can provide to the household until either their social security benefits are in payment or they've been able to seek employment and support themselves. So for us, the expectation with the integration package is that we will provide accommodation. That accommodation needs to be suitable, meet all of our usual standards, as well as being affordable. We're not sure at the moment what the makeup of the households will be, so it's quite hard for us at the moment to know whether we're looking at smaller units or larger family units. We're led to believe that it's likely to be larger families, so perhaps with a 3 or a 4 bedroom need. but as I said, we're not sure as yet. We also need to provide a package of advice and assistance, which would cover help with employment, welfare benefits, housing, health, registering with local schools, and setting them up with all local utilities, as well as registration with health and the job centre to get a national insurance number and universal credit claims sorted. So anyone coming won't be eligible for any social security benefits until they satisfy the habitual residence test. So for that initial period of time, us as a local authority would be expected to give them weekly financial cash support from their tariff to support the family until they're able to secure that. So at the moment in Conway, we are currently part of what was the Syrian Vulnerable Persons Resettlement Scheme, but now known as the UK Resettlement Scheme. And we've been a part of that scheme since 2016, where we have assisted 5 families to settle into the area and are still working with them. Conway is also signed up to be an asylum dispersal scheme. So we support both at schemes. So we see this scheme really as an extension of that. So as I said, we've had 5 families. At the moment, we run the scheme in partnership with Denbighshire Council. We have a contract with them to coordinate the day-to-day, and also the British Red Cross are contracted to deliver the support element to those families over that period of time. It's worth noting that at the moment that the capacity within those teams at the moment wouldn't be enough to deliver this refugee resettlement scheme as well. We would have to look at procuring or tendering for something else. Initial conversations with the British Red Cross indicate that they're not able to expand the current contract to provide the support for this scheme. So we would have to look. So the concerns really for us locally, the first one being the supply and demand of accommodation. As I'm sure you're aware as local members, we're experiencing a very high demand for affordable housing and low supply of accommodation in the county, particularly around single people and larger family units. We've currently got just under 1,300 households on the Common Housing Register, and 283 households or 556 people in our temporary accommodation that are also looking for permanent housing. And the rate of move on has slowed. The second concern we have is obviously as above the capacity due to the high level of demand for homelessness and housing services at the moment. It would be difficult for us to add this in alongside the Denbighshire scheme, so we would have to look at that. And the third one that's just worth highlighting is the employment opportunities. There are some concerns about the limitations of employment opportunities for the families. Of the 5 families that we've currently had under the Syrian resettlement scheme, 3 of those families are looking to relocate to other parts of the UK based on the fact that they feel they've not been able to secure the employment that they would want within Conway. So given that this scheme only runs for 12 months in terms of funding, there is a small risk there that if this family that we take on to this scheme have the same difficulties with employment, it may mean then that it would fall to the local authority to pick them up either through housing or other financial assistance. So the options that we have would be to support the UK government and join the scheme, but the caveat for us would be that we'd be looking to support one family, just because based on the issues highlighted above, we don't feel at the moment that as the Conway Housing Solutions Partnership that we would be able to support or indeed find accommodation that was suitable for more than one family at the moment. So those are the main highlights from the report. I don't know if anyone had any questions or queries about it.
Thank you, Ashley, and thank you for that presentation. The first speaker I have is Councillor Michael Smith.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Ashley, for the report. I think morally it's something that we should all be looking to support. But you've raised some of my concerns at the end there about the funding being for such a short amount of time, and my concern was that they would end up being further supported once this funding ended, and I wouldn't want to see any priority above our already waiting people on our list and local people. And you raised concerns about employment locally. That there is that. People struggle for jobs locally. There aren't that many opportunities depending on what you're looking to do. So there are some real concerns there. Morally, I think it's the right thing to do. But, if you brought a family here, I think we will be supporting them for way longer than 12 months. And ultimately, they may not find the employment they want, if at all. So that is a real concern. So I'd like to see if anyone else got any further comments.
Thank you, Councillor Michael. I don't have any other hands up. I have a question for you, Ashley. You say the recommendation is that we perhaps have the capacity to house one family. Would that be in a house or would it be in a hotel or bed and breakfast?
So at the moment, the arrangements are when the Home Office arranged all the transport out of Afghanistan, and the Home Office at the moment are paying and providing the temporary accommodation when the family first arrive in the UK. And what they do is we then get in contact with the Home Office and say, we've identified a property of X size, and they're then responsible for matching who they've got. So Conway wouldn't have to provide any of the temporary accommodation. We would just have to provide the permanent property.
But after the 12 months, then we would have to house the family.
The ideal would be that the property that we place them in would continue to be affordable for them after the 12 months, and they would be, integrated into the community, and that would be sustained. But I suppose, as highlighted in the report, one of the risks is given the property prices at the moment in Conway, trying to find something that is going to be affordable if that family haven't been able to secure employment and are going to be reliant on, say, universal credit to meet the rental payments. It may be that property isn't going to be affordable. So the challenge for us as the housing team really will be to make sure that any accommodation that we find for this family is going to be affordable and sustainable after the 12-month period.
Yeah. Okay then. Thank you, Ashley. Councillor Joan Vaughan.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Ashley. Yeah, this is one of those tugs on the heart, doesn't it? Of course, we've got to do what we can do. And you think, oh, well, it's only one family. From your experience of the other 5 families, where you say 3 are wanting to relocate, is it a language problem? Are we costing in the cost of them all learning English or Welsh, as the case may be? Is it a language problem that bars them from employment?
So with the 5 Syrian families that we've currently are supporting and have been in Conway for varying lengths of time, some have been here for sort of 4 years, some have been here within the last 2 years. Of the ones that are there, one of them, it's kind of more an issue around the type of business that they want to set up, which is a halal butchers, and is perhaps not having a large enough market in sort of the North Wales or Conway area to make that business viable, whereas they see perhaps a move to Cardiff or Birmingham, where there's a larger number of families, that would have that and would access that service, it would be more viable. And then for the others, it's more around family connections, other family members that are in the UK. Within this package of support from the Home Office, there is financial support around language and making sure that they're engaged with learning English. So there is financial assistance provided as part of that, and that is one of the support outcomes for the 12-month support. There's also additional support as well for schools and education service around supporting any children in the household who may have English as their second language, and supporting them to get up to. On the Syrian scheme, the level of English was quite low when they came over. We're led to believe that the level of English might be quite good because the locally engaged staff that are coming over were engaged and working for either the Ministry of Defence or other government departments whilst out there. So we're led to believe that certainly the ones that were working have got quite a good level of English. So we're hoping that it won't be a barrier, but we won't know until we're matched with that particular family.
Good. I do support the recommendation. I would like to propose, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Joe. Councillor Donald Milne.
Thank you, Chair. Would I be right, therefore, in assuming that when these people are placed, they don't look at employment needs, skills, etc., when actually placing them within the UK? It's other factors and nothing to do with their potential employment and therefore the skills they offer, because clearly some areas are more amenable to certain types of employment.
Yes, I think that's a really good point there, Councillor Donald. So the matching in terms of the families to the local authority is done purely by the Home Office. And us as the local authority wouldn't have any say. All we can do is go to them to say we've identified whatever property we've got that might be suitable. Whether employment is one of the factors that they look at, I'm unsure, but we do attend a weekly meeting with WLJ about this scheme. So if that's something that you'd like me to ask and feedback, I'm happy to do that.
Yes, that will be very much appreciated.
No problem at all. I'll do that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Don. Councillor Bob Squire.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm not against this at all, but I'm happy to support the one family accommodated in this area. I think the one issue we've got to bear in mind is the feelings of the rest of the population, because a lot of people are going through difficult times anyway. And I don't think there's any sort of suggestion of race issues or anything like that. But the way I feel is that these people have gone through an awful lot. And in Afghanistan, particularly at the expense of some, or at the fault of some politicians, both in this country and in America. But having said that, I still feel that there are children involved. And what I feel is that we should support a family with children, because I would hate to be in their situation. I really mean that, because having got a great grandson of 3, I would still say the same. But nevertheless, we've got to be aware of the feelings of our own community, and they're going through a lot of hardship as well. So I will support it. No problem with that. But I think we've got to bear in mind how other people feel. And I know from talking to people, and I think, Chair, you would be the same, there are people locally in all communities who are so sick and tired of seeing 9, 10, 11 single men as economic migrants coming into the country. I don't agree with that at all. So, but I will support this because of the vulnerability of little children. Thank you, Chair.
Are you seconding Councillor Jones' proposal?
I will.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bob. Councillor Chris Hughes.
Thanks, Chair. I was just reading the report the other day, and when I was going through it, parts of it just did. I don't know whether it's the way I've read it or whether but it didn't seem to make sense in some parts. For example, on page 126, we've got the table which says weekly cash support for up to 4 months, and it details how much we would be providing. And then in 3.3.3, it says that LES are not eligible for benefits until they can satisfy the habitual residency test set by the Department of Work and Pensions, which can take up to 3 months. It then says, so local authorities will provide financial support to those who arrive under the relocation schemes for up to 12 months. Now, in the preamble, you mentioned that all of the costs of the local authority would be met, but reading through the documentation, it seemed to leave this period of 8 months, which if they were unable to, I might have read it wrong, a period of 8 months where if they were unable to gain employment within that time, the local authority would be, if I'm reading it rightly, responsible for providing the financial support.
No, I think initially it was 4 months, wasn't it, Ash? And I think they've extended it now to 12 months.
Right, because it says 4 months in the report, but
Yeah.
then talks about 12 months. And I just wanted, I just wanted to check, because obviously as an authority, we are already under significant financial pressures. And whilst I'm sure every one of us would agree that that these people need to be supported, they've helped us as a country in in the work that we've been doing in Afghanistan, and we need to be ensuring that we provide for them. But at the same time, that has to be our costs need to be met by UK government or some other organisation. And I just wanted to clarify that, because there did seem a discrepancy within the report.
Yeah, we can double check that, can't we, Ash?
Yeah, absolutely. So the funding is there for 12 months. I think the part that you're mentioning, which is the weekly cash support rates, isn't it, which is up to 4 months. So that is for when they first arrive with us. So for us as a local authority, we will be responsible for giving them, depending on the household, those set figures. And then during that initial period then, supporting them to apply with the job centre for the relevant benefits. So the DWP have got around benefits the habitual residence test, where someone's got to be obviously prove they're habitually resident in the UK. So that's normally given as once someone's been in the country for 3 months, they're taken as being, having passed that test. So that's why the 4 month support is there financially. But it is a good point, because if for whatever reason they didn't then qualify for social security benefits and didn't seek employment, there is, as you said, a cliff really that drops off after the 4 months in terms of the financial support. It's not something that's been raised previously as an issue on the UK resettlement scheme, and it's not something that's been raised by some authorities that have had a bit of a head start on this scheme. But again, it's something that, because we meet weekly, it's something that I'm happy to raise to sort of say, if we got to that 4 month point and a family didn't qualify for any financial assistance from the state or benefits, what happens then? Are we allowed to fund for another 8 months or not?
Yeah, I would appreciate that. I think it's a question needs to be asked, but not just whether are we allowed to fund, but who is going to fund? Because if the money has to come out of Conway's budgets, then we need to find a budget to facilitate that.
Absolutely, yeah, I've put that down, and I'll ask that at the next meeting and feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Councillor Chris. And our final speaker, Councillor Michael Smith.
Thank you, Chair. And it was Chris that brought my attention to it again in the table of figures. I would like to find a transfer to an airport from Conway for 40 quid. So I think that needs to be brought up, because that's a transfer from a airport to accommodation, £40 per person. I don't know whether it'd be covered even if you had 4 people in the taxi. So yeah, just being mindful, because depending on where they fly into, even the John Lennon, which I doubt they're going to fly into Liverpool from Afghanistan, they're not going to get to us. So who's going to cover that additional cost? A small amount to pay to get them to us. But that needs to be considered. It's an additional cost that could fall to us, which potentially we might not have budgeted for. So yeah, just another one that's going to possibly fall shy.
Well, thank you very much for that, Michael. That will be noted, I'm sure, by Ashley. I want to take the members to the recommendation, which is to support the UK government in the join the scheme based on the following, and that is that one family is accommodated, provided that there is flexibility over the use of the elements of funding which can be used to support that family. We've got a proposer which is Councillor Joan Vaughan and seconded by Councillor Bob Squire. I will take it to the roll call. So Jane, could you call out the members' names, please?
Yes, will do. Please indicate, members, if you're for, against or abstaining. Councillor Carol Beard. Councillor Carol, is she gone?
Looks like it.
Looks like it. Okay. Councillor Philip Capper.
For.
Councillor Jeff Corrie.
For.
Councillor Chris Hughes.
Obliged.
Councillor David Johnson. Councillor Johnson.
Looks
No.
like Councillor Johnson's gone.
Okay. Councillor Gail Jones.
For.
Councillor Don Milne.
For.
Councillor John Roberts has gone. Councillor Harry Saville has gone. Councillor Michael Smith.
Most definitely for.
Councillor Nigel Smith.
Obliged.
Councillor Bob Squire.
Obliged.
Councillor Joan Vaughan.
For.
And Councillor Aaron Wynne.
Obliged.
Okay, thank you, members. That was unanimous.
Members, that has been approved, and it's very pleasing that we're supporting these ex-government employees who find themselves in a very difficult situation. So that is the end of the meeting, as far as I'm aware. I want to thank everybody for attending this evening and their officers for their report, Ashley and Debbie for your final report, and that last report will be moved on to Cabinet for approval. Good evening, everybody. Take care and keep safe. Thank you.
Chair.
Thank you, members.